feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming to you Thursday morning. It's March 5th, and I'm joined in studio here by Britt Robson. What's up?
All right, ready to talk Wolves.
You ready? All right. The Wolves do play Toronto this evening, so we're doing like we did last week, where we recorded one on Thursday right before a game. What happened last week was a huge fight. But the huge Ant-Finch interaction went down. So whatever happens in tonight's Wolves-Raptors game, Kyle and I will get to tomorrow. But I don't think we have any shortage of stuff, right?
Sure,
this feels like a very relevant...
As always, good time of year.
That is true. Yeah, like you said last week, it's going to be high drama the rest of the way. And I think that's proving out in the games. But it's also like kind of high drama and like the cast of characters, right? Like that's the big change this week recently. We've been talking a little bit on here about the Kyle Anderson signing, but I'm curious for you, like, what does the Kyle Anderson signing and the role you saw him play in that first game tell you about where this team is at?
Well, I wonder if it is just an immersion, throw him in the pool immediately, and then we'll figure out later how long he stays in the pool.
Come on. You think that's what it is?
You think he's going to be a consistent 13, 15 minutes a game guy? I don't know. I mean, I think if he is consistently 13 to 15 minutes, it will be an interesting battle for Finch, because he's been very jealous about rotation minutes. He has explicitly stated that, I've got 3 36-minute front court guys.
Mm-hmm. But Kyle played the 3.
Yeah, Kyle did play the 3. And the only way I see it happening, quite frankly, is if he is a combination like Mike Conley type. He's a calmer down and also a point guard, a guy who facilitates on the floor.
Which also happened in the first game.
It did happen, although, again, I guess maybe part of my analysis of this based off bias. I'm not sure he is the godsend that Finch and the organization are making him out to be. I think he has an interesting skill set that works. I also think he's got some things that get in the way of what the Wolves do well.
Well, okay. Why don't you elaborate on that? I mean, I like the push back against the grain. I mean, I was saying yesterday, we do kind of forget once a player leaves, what the prickly parts of the game was, or what the things that annoyed us.
How
about
many iterations he's gone through.
Yeah.
I mean,
that happened with Kyle.
I agree that he is ready, willing, and able to be coached by Chris Finch again, because it was so obviously a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
But the cast of characters are very different coming back here, and his skill sets are a couple of years older. Not that he's necessarily somebody who will age poorly in terms of his skill sets. But I've been on this pace bandwagon now for about 3 weeks, and I just think there's a lot of data that shows that elevated pace really helps the Timberwolves. And I'm not sure our guy nicknamed Slow-Mo, in addition to the fact that he is not somebody who makes quick decisions, he's not somebody who dribbles quickly up the floor. And if he's not playing with the starters, if he's playing with that bench crew, I am not certain that that's the best fit for this team in terms of rotations. So it's going to be a fit that takes time, I think. I mean, was the first game a success? That's an interesting question.
Well,
he didn't attempt the shot.
Let's start on the transition piece of it, because I don't agree with that. I think Kyle is a player who inspires pace.
Okay.
And I've just started pulling. I didn't know the numbers on this before, but I go to the 22-23 season. That his first one, he was here, and you look at the frequency with which they got in transition. The player that boosted the most was Jordan McLaughlin on that team. Sure. We can picture that, so I think that's a good representation that this is a pretty accurate stat. Jalen Noel had the second biggest boost in transition opportunities. Again, neither of them played very many minutes. But if you talk about guys who played a lot, Kyle Anderson had the biggest impact on the frequency with which the Wolves played transition. I do think the name is a little bit of a misnomer. So obviously he
Right.
can't run fast,
Right.
but I was talking about this the other day with Jace. Like, can't you picture the Kyle like back in the day swinging his arm like the
I can.
third base coach, sending the guy home? Like, I think he does inspire more pace than it would seem on the surface.
I think he inspires more pace than it would seem on the surface, but I don't necessarily think he inspires more pace than what they have out there. What I saw a lot in the Kyle Anderson minutes was Ayo just eclipsing the field, getting down and leaving most of his teammates in the dust the other night. There wasn't a lot of people running with him or following up quickly. I would have liked to seen a little bit more of a 2 or 3 or 4 people rush on that. Ayo was really, really aggressive.
Oh yeah, best game he had was the most. I'd said most. He looked like a Bulls player, like the Bulls version of himself.
And his name is Ayo. I get that.
Yeah. I didn't say anything. I was going to. That's a whole not separate side plot of like is the bench playing faster with Bones Highland and Ayo Dosunmu leading to the team playing faster overall, and it like even playing faster when they're not on the floor. I asked Ant about it. Well, maybe I'll play that later. Yeah. I asked Ant about it, and he was like, "No, I don't think that's true." To me, it looks like it. It looks like it's true. But Ant is not a player who wants to play fast. Julius Randle is not a player who wants to play fast.
As much.
Exactly. And so, like, even if those numbers exaggerate what I'm talking about, and you're a little bit more right, and Kyle belongs in the bin more towards neutral or more towards not wanting to quote unquote play fast.
Right.
It's not like there's not a place for that on this team.
Right.
Additionally. And
I agree.
And I think that's what we saw.
But that you just mentioned, Randall and Ant, is it going to be Jaden? If it's Jaden that he bumps from the starters, not starting, but like second rotation when you have the starters back. If Jaden gets to play more with the go-go unit, then you're talking. Then I think that's a good move both ways. I am a firm believer in the versatility of Jaden McDaniels being able to play pretty well with everybody. But I think that when he has more opportunity to play make and more opportunity to run, he is his best version of himself. Now, the problem with that is oftentimes the player he is wing stopping plays up against the starters. It's a first unit thing. So that's the issue there. But I do think the more you can play McDaniels with that Ayo, Bones, Nas contingent.
Well, that's what it's been. It's been the 3
Rudy,
bench guys with Rudy and Jaden.
Exactly.
And now Kyle is another bench guy.
And
Where
I love
is he
that.
playing?
And I love that.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I'm saying. Just as Finch used to push back on us when we'd say, well, what about playing this guy? Well, where are you going to play him? How are you going to play him? Who gets affected? And I'm asking these questions now because it might be Bones, I think, getting back to my point guard idea. It might be Ayo a little bit, although I don't think that's as likely. It might be Nas, and that would be a problem for me. Because Nas is already being a great sacrificer of both role and playing time, in my opinion. And Nas had a really bad game the other night. And I don't know if some of that is pressure on, confusion a little bit about how slow-mo gets in
don't
there.
you feel like that's a little bit of a step? Huh? A little bit of an overstep to say it's because Nas had a bad
I agree.
game.
No, I'm not saying these are because, but what I am saying is, would you agree that if we're looking at whose minutes get affected, that Nas is on the table?
I would not agree. I don't. I think it's just because it's already like tucked under 30. That's what it was, and they were struggling to, even when Nas is having a good game, find ways to get him into the 30s because he's not starting
exactly
halves or closing them.
So who gets affected?
I would say Bones primarily. But first, I think we need to figure out what the size of the role is. Right now, we're going off the one game, and Kyle played 15 minutes.
Right.
He played a little 6-minute shift. He closed the second quarter, played a little 6-minute shift in the second half again. That was a game where Rudy was in foul trouble.
Right.
and Jaden was sort of in foul
He
trouble.
well, they both had 3 fouls in the first
at a time. So that may be, if Rudy doesn't pick up that third, is Kyle shift 6 minutes? Or what if the role actually is more like 10 minutes a game, like the theoretical Terrence Shannon Jr. role sort of was? I think we need to understand what the scope of if we were like, he played 20 minutes the other night, and we are kind of like, oh, maybe he's going to play 20 minutes. Then I think we're talking about, yeah, this is maybe going to be a substantial change to the rotation. Maybe someone needs to get moved altogether. I think in the 10 to 15 minute range, it's more like you can make sort of marginal adjustments, at least during the regular season, of like even a minute or two less here for Julius or Jaden or Ant. Like I would guess it comes out of a collective subtraction rather than a primary player losing like 10 minutes.
Again, I guess my pushback is we saw a tot 8 against Denver, and I thought it worked really well.
Sure. But can't that be the thing, Britt? Like where if for the Denver matchup, maybe, or whatever matchup to matchup, you don't play Kyle in this one matchup, or maybe you don't play Bones, and it is a taut 8, but a dependent.
Right.
8.
No, and those are the things to be determined.
Right.
Finch's fondness for slow-mo and his desire to get him in at loggerheads with some of his other favorite players is an interesting idea.
It is.
And that's why I wonder if some of the players who are not favorites of his may be affected in ways. Not that Nas isn't a favorite of his, but I think he takes minutes out of Nas before he takes minutes out of Randall.
Yeah, I would agree with that because we've seen a track record of that for sure.
And it might be Rudy too, depending on, it'll be interesting to see, because Rudy is somebody who actually is very matchup dependent.
Yes.
And so
in Finch's view.
Yes. And actually, in reality, I think there are very clear-cut examples where removing Rudy from the floor has created a dynamic, specifically when they go zone or specifically when they need to move the ball a little bit more and score, where Rudy's presence is a detriment.
In Finch's opinion, the numbers don't bear that out, but that's what Finch's pattern is. We're down by 10, Rudy off, let's get Nas and Julius in there. We're trying to move the ball.
And again, I think some of the times that hasn't worked have been matchup dependent too.
Yeah,
I do think, Rudy against Wemby is much diminished because some of the things he does really well just de facto are less effective because of he's playing against a praying mantis.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very different dynamic.
Yeah.
So I guess, when it comes to this whole slow-mo conversation, what I have been seeing is the Timberwolves rounding into classic Chris Finch post All-Star break form. And I think that's something everybody who isn't just a knee-jerk Finch hater should look forward to. His record over the last 2.5 years after the All-Star break is 40-19 right now.
Jeez.
So injecting another guy in, one of the things that has always happened under Finch's tenure is slow adjustments to new personnel.
Just what we were expecting.
And, again, slow-mo isn't exactly new, but he is a very unique dynamic. The guy prefers not to shoot, and it will be interesting to see what happens when teams begin to dare him to shoot and take away those passing lanes, which did happen toward the end of his tenure.
Yeah.
So, I guess
let's dig into that a little bit. Let's dig into that one because so he played quote unquote the 3 a lot in that first game, meaning he was playing next to Nas and Julius, not next to Rudy.
Right.
And you said, was it a success or not? It wasn't a failure.
No, it wasn't a failure.
And
They won the game, and
but not like a ringing success story of like Kyle unlocked the offense.
But in terms of the fact that, again, if you're getting a guy's feet wet with the team and everybody's getting on the same page, and meanwhile Ayo is also kind of still in transition.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. I just worry when the competition is tougher and the games mean a lot more, when Finch whether he tells us or tells the team, all right, this is a playoff game for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I'm interested to see what the rotation is like. Because that's when that tot 8 happened. And I thought it worked really well.
Mm-hmm. I think the distinction to be made for us to make once we get more information and more games is what he looks like at the 3 versus at the 4 and next to Rudy. Because again, what
There's
we didn't
a long
see,
history of that we've talked about when he was here last time.
Yeah, and what functionally is going to happen if he's on the floor with Rudy is he's going to be in one of 2 places. As Rudy's around the basket, he's going to be initiating the offense as like the clear, like bring the ball up point guard, starting the action, or he's going to be in the corner.
Right.
And that's not the case when he's at the 3, right? They're playing him more, or not even at the 3. It's more like he's playing the 4.
Right.
Remember, they're using him like horns. They're using him as like a elbow extended hub to play through there. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to give Kyle Anderson the ball within the 3-point arc as often, and it won't be as effective if Rudy is 4 feet away from him around the basket there. So I think ultimately what is going to determine the ceiling of the Kyle Anderson minutes and what this can or can't be is what can he do when he's out there with Rudy, because that's where the problems presented themselves from an offensive standpoint of him getting completely ignored in the corner. And then, some teams take that to a whole nother level where they're like, we're not going to guard Kyle in the corner and we're not going to really guard Rudy either. So now you kind of have 5 guys, what you want to call the zone, or you just want to call like their general focus being directed at Ant, being directed at Julius, whoever
because
the primary
ironically,
guy.
the reason that happens is because back then, at least, and who knows, maybe now, although I see Jaden in this role, Kyle was the best guy to feed Rudy. So if Kyle's in the corner and he's not having the ball, then it is much easier to let Rudy go.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see when that happens and it doesn't work. What is Finch's pivot to be like, okay, bring Kyle to the bench and kind of ice that?
Or Kyle at the 3 doing that thing he does, which is to be a traffic cone, but very, very effective disher.
Yeah.
Kyle thrives in a crowd when he's passing the ball. That is, I would argue, his superpower. That and the being able to not bite on up fakes and keeping his feet. He is a much better defender than he is physically able to be normally because he guesses or just has an innate capacity for ignoring when somebody's trying to get him in the air. So that capacity and the capacity to find people in what aren't really interior passes, but are not entry passes either, that in-between zone where he's hitting people in just the right place for either nice mid-ranges or layups, or even occasionally in the corner if things get too crowded. All those things are good things. And I'm not arguing against Kyle Anderson, the player, so much as I'm arguing the timeline of when he's entering and who it affects at a point in the season when the Wolves are fighting for position.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly an open question. And it's not just like this is going to work on all levels perfectly. But I do think it being the first game and Kyle just getting there was a strong indication of not only where Finch is at with this, which we kind of assumed.
Right. Like the tone in his voice was, he'll play. He'll play tonight.
I mean, I thought that was as telling as like honestly anything Finch has ever said. I asked him this was before the game of like, is it going to take time for Kyle to acclimate tonight, or does he need time to kind of like download the system?
Yeah, he'll play tonight.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was a sign that I'll play him tonight. I'll play him tonight.
And he's often coy.
Yeah, he is. Right.
And he didn't want to be coy. He wanted to send a message to his players that publicly I'm going to state that this guy is here right now. Again, I think it's a little bit of a risk, and I do wonder what the domino effect of that is on playing time, because Finch can't say 2 things at the same time. He can't say, well, so-and-so isn't getting any minutes. How do you get this guy in the lineup when you've got X, Y, and Z? Well, X, Y, and Z is still there. And suddenly we're going to get another guy in the lineup anyway.
Yeah. And I think it's using a different set of parameters in Finch's mind.
And it's also saying the other guy really didn't need to be in the lineup, and I have a rotation minutes excuse.
Yeah.
Now I'm saying, well, I don't really need that rotation minutes excuse, so we'll play it the way I want to play it here.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and let's make a daily fantasy lineup for tonight's Wolves game against Toronto. I'm picking some guys I like for the Raptors. Give me Jamal Shed to have more than 6.5 points in this game. I think he will play a lot in this matchup. I think they'll use him on Anthony Edwards, want him out on the floor. I think that will lead to him scoring more than 6.5 points. And then give me Sandro Mamukilishvili to make a three, more than 0.5 made threes in this game. I think he'll play. I think he'll be spacing the floor. I think he'll hit a three. And then how about a bounce back game from Naz Reid? I'll say he has more than 12.5 points scored in this game tonight. Just about every player who will play in that game this evening for the Wolves or Raptors has stat totals set on their picks. And if you're going to be watching the game, I think it is fun to have $5 on the line going on the game, just playing for fun, not breaking the bank. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks, and now even more going on with the ability to do futures and point spreads over on the teams tab. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, try it out. All you have to do is put in the promo code Dane when you sign up. You receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane. So whatever skepticism aside, I think objectively on paper, this team has a better roster kind of by far than it did at the beginning of the season when you swap in, Ayo Dosunmu and Kyle Anderson for the combination of Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham,
Mike Conley,
Jalen Clark. Right.
That is the swap. Right.
Yeah. That's a pretty substantial, even with some skepticism on Kyle, if you want to apply that this is a better team. And I'm just kind of thinking and wondering where you're at on this. Is this just like clearly the third best team in the West to you now?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think that we have to see this team as currently constituted beat good teams on a continual basis.
They're going to get that opportunity now with this schedule type.
Exactly. And, Toronto and Orlando are both really nice setups. They're not elite, but they're good teams. And these are both winnable games. They're at home, but they're against teams who play good defense, who don't turn the ball over, which is a crucial factor in Timberwolves wins. My last column, the difference between points off turnovers in wins and losses is the biggest disparity in the Western Conference by far.
Yeah.
They get 21 points off turnovers, other teams' turnovers in their wins, and they get 15 points off other teams' turnovers in their losses. That 6-point disparity, there's only one team in the NBA that has a greater disparity. It's the Wizards, and it's a ridiculous 9 points, and it's because the Wizards have won like 15 games.
Right.
And so getting points off turnovers is a key component of Timberwolves' success. And
it's a key component of great defensive success. Now, like look at Toronto, not Toronto, Oklahoma City, like last year, like that was
they
their
typically
thing.
lead the league, and they lead the league this year in points off turnovers. Yes, absolutely. But it also, one of the reasons the Timberwolves have not usually been regarded in that category is because they don't run off turnovers a lot. Their transition initiation was dead last in the league last year. 15% of their plays were in transition. That's up to like 19 this year. They've jumped to 11th in transition, at least as of a game or two ago.
Yeah.
And so they're not only turning people over, but they're trying to do something about it right away. And they have generally been pretty successful in getting points off turnovers, quite frankly. But I see much more of a desire to translate that transition mindset into defensive rebounds and into just the way players naturally want to put their skill set into a scheme.
Right.
And Ayo is huge in that. Bones is huge in that. Naz has always been like the standard of that on this team. And
But
it gets
isn't the
back to
case that
Finch's,
they're doing that?
huh?
Isn't the case that they're doing more of it, have a roster that can do more of it, mean that it's a better team than it was before?
I believe so, but I also think we should not underrate. I would put them. I would put them in a bin.
Mhm.
You know, I would put Oklahoma City and the Spurs in the first tier,
Yeah.
and I would put the Wolves, the Rockets, the Nuggets, and perhaps the Lakers
All
in the
four of
next
them.
tiers. The Lakers I would downgrade, but I would put the Rockets and the Nuggets in that area. And part of it is the Nuggets. If the Wolves had suffered the same amount of injuries, if you just went tit for tat on, all right, there's third man guy. Let's say Aaron Gordon equates to Jaden McDaniels or something, and Peyton Watson equates to, I don't know, Ayo
DiVincenzo
or something,
yeah.
whatever. They'd be screwed, what it looks like. I mean, Denver has been much more resourceful. They have a record like the Cavs. They've suffered a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And they're not playing well right now, but you get Gordon and Peyton Watson back.
Sure.
And it's the playoffs, and Jokic, hard to say whether Jokic's thing is injury related, care factor related, or just waiting for games to matter. But
they're weirdly like the Wolves, where the whole like playing up to the competition, playing down to the competition sort of thing that we've whined about this year.
Yeah.
Denver does that too.
I agree totally. But I also think that Denver has a better top guy, And,
yeah. Okay.
And they, when they get healthy, it will be interesting. I'm not arguing that the Wolves are worse than the Nuggets, and I'm not arguing the Wolves are worse than the Rockets. But they've lost 3 or 4 to the Nuggets, and they've lost their only game to the Rockets. And I worry about Kevin Durant being coached by Ime Udoka, knowing it's maybe his last go round to really try to get a ring on a team that he is leading. I worry about Durant turning back the clock about 4 years in the playoffs and just having a great series. And I think that is entirely possible. And
well, the Wolves don't have Cat to guard him anymore. So.
Well, I mean, just in general, is it Jaden? I mean, I guess it would be by nature, but
those Houston...
Randall, Jaden, I mean, I don't know. They don't have a great matchup.
Yeah.
Slow-mo.
Well, I mean, maybe. And what they did against KD in Phoenix was they put Cat on him, and they had help, just
exactly.
Like
and had help. And some of that is because what surrounded KD in Phoenix and what surrounds KD in Houston couldn't be more different.
That's true.
Who offensive rebounded for the Suns back then, Anyway, I think they're dangerous. I think Houston is dangerous. I think that and I think that Denver is dangerous, and you never know. I mean, but if the answer to your question, the West goes through Oklahoma City and San Antonio, and then after that, I would put the Wolves right in the mix there. And if you made me choose, I'd probably put them over Denver and not over Houston if you made me choose.
So you'd have Houston 3, Wolves 4, Denver 5. LA
Again,
6.
If you made me choose, but I'm much more confident grouping those teams in the same bin.
So the way I'm looking at it, and I think is a case that the Wolves are the third best, is that if I'm the Wolves and I'm picking my opponent in the first round between those other 3 teams, I don't see there's not like one of those teams where where I would clearly be like, I don't want to play them way more than I don't want to play another one of those teams. I mean, for me, I think Denver would still be the one if I was the Wolves I'd least like to play. But, going off of how poorly Denver's been playing, the result the other day, I think question marks about their injury and stuff like that. I don't feel like it's this clear cut, like Denver is the team I would least want to play.
Right.
I think for those other 3 teams, if you pose the same question to them, and who they would least like to play in the first round between those 4 teams, 3 through 6, I think maybe all of them would say they'd least like to play the Wolves. I would least like to play the Wolves if I was LA, if I was Houston, if I was Denver there. I agree. It's all like a similar tier.
I don't know the matchups. So, I mean, I don't know the prior records, but I can see where you're coming from in the fact that Denver and the Lakers don't defend.
Yeah.
And that is huge. I mean, let's face it, in the playoffs, that really matters. If Denver didn't have by far the best offense in the NBA, it would be eliminated. The Lakers are winning with mirrors right now. I mean, they're 10th and 22nd or something in terms of their offense and defense.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they've got 2 of the most resourceful players. And
I got to watch more of them.
Reeve is healthy again. Well, they have their big 3 back.
Yep.
Reeve actually did really come to the fore when LeBron was out early in the year. He had a great first couple of months.
Had that great game against the Wolves.
Yeah. And they've got Rui, and, they've got different folks that are interesting. And who has Luke Cornett now, dude? The Lakers have Luke Cornett? I don't mean Luke Cornett.
Luke Kennard.
Luke Kennard.
Yeah,
Luke
Lakers,
Kennard.
yeah.
That's a big piece for them because that outside shooting, especially with Luke, it's always his magnetism on the floor. That's great for dunks, but it's also great for kickouts. And if you have, Kennard wide open on kickouts because Luke is drawing 3, again, they're kind of like Denver in that I see their offensive upside being able to overwhelm teams, and that's how they win because they are slow. And that, again, that gets back to my idea about pace. If the Wolves can lean as hard into their pace as they have been lately and are successful at it, don't turn the ball over as much. Finch is continually saying, well, we got a little bit over our pace monitor and began to turn it over. I'd sacrifice some of that simply because I do think it really helps Randall, among other people. Randall is a much better distributor when he's coming down the floor rather than dribbling into a crowd.
As Finch said, it speeds up his decision-making.
And that is absolutely true. And if we're living with trying to get the best version of Randall, then pace is very important. So here's what I would say. I would say if the Wolves can continue to successfully run a top 10 pace, they're currently 9th in the NBA after a very, very slow start, I could see them better than Houston. Again, I do worry about the X factor of Durant. It's a classic drama, the old gunslinger for one more round, I mean, that is a player. And you know me, I'm not a Kevin Durant stan by any means. But I do know that guy can pour in points. And when he is on a heater, it's an enormous X factor in a game.
Yeah, but for that to be an enormous delta, an advantage in the series, then, it's what is he doing compared to Ant, right?
Well, he destroyed them in their first game.
Yeah.
If you recall, I mean, one of the main reasons Houston won is because Durant just kept hitting shots. And I agree that the Wolves are one of the rare teams that have a counter that could eclipse that even.
But that's going to be being guarded by Amin Thompson. That's going to be
and
a
Tari
tough
Eason,
one.
And they can rotate a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would have them as a scarier opponent for the Wolves and the Lakers. I think,
not even a remote question for me.
Yeah, they play Houston again, right? Here before
3 more times, or at least two more times,
right?
So they only play him 3 for the year.
I'm also curious about the Şengün matchup in that one of who they guard.
He wipes Rudy out a lot.
Yeah. I think the Wolves would present issues and do present issues to them as well, and if you're getting a better version of the Wolves defense, I mean, that series I think would be a lot about the Wolves defense being locked in and not making it easy
for Durant.
for Durant and just Houston's like offensive flow
Absolutely.
in general.
When they're bad, they're terrible on offense.
Yeah.
And even with 1 million offensive rebounds, their efficiency is not great.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you that,
Right.
They don't. But it's an interesting question. And then, of course, if you want to get into scenarios, I don't think many people would disagree with the Thunder and the Spurs as the top two, but we've seen 6 games, and they've been a lot of fun, and the Wolves have won 4 of them. So it would be fun to get peak Wolves, not a 4-1 wipeout in the conference finals, but more like a 7-game victory over Denver in the second round or the first round. That's what you want when you play one of those top 2 teams. Is if you're a fan of basketball, which I am above all, you want both teams playing really, really well, because that's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it's interesting if the Wolves get the 3 seed, right, and they play whoever in the 6. It's probably going to be an extended series, right?
Right.
More likely than not go 6 or 7, and I think the Wolves would be.
I think more like 5 or 6, but I mean, depends again who it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it would more than likely be the Lakers, right?
The Lakers, if the Lakers are the 6, I mean, at the moment, I think that's what it would be. I'm more comparing it against. I think San Antonio and Oklahoma City will probably sweep their first round series.
Right.
The money would be, I think, on that
Or 5, right?
Or 5,
gentleman sweep.
A lighter
one of those
series.
ones where we're not worried about it. They never worry about the outcome.
Yeah, right.
One of those series, right?
And I wonder what the impact of that is on the second round series. If the Wolves do need to go 7 against the Lakers or the Rockets or Denver in the first round, and the Spurs have just played Phoenix,
Right.
What does that mean for round 2? I don't know. Maybe the other side of it is the Wolves have been, playoff tested already in the first round, and they got their playoff.
And there is something to that. I mean, I do think that it isn't a cliche. San Antonio just feels different to me in terms of they're already playing with found money. I'll never forget that preseason thing outside where I thought I was a big man for saying they were going to make it in outside. They're not going to have to play in the play-in. And I thought that was a bold prediction, that they were going to finish 6th. And so they are so far above expectations and so ahead of their learning curve that it could go either of 2 ways. But I think Wemby is one of those guys that has his head and psyche screwed on right and is just going to play with an element of joy and less pressure. He doesn't strike me as a guy who's easily rattled.
No.
And so
that Pistons game, I watched that one, really showed me that. I was like, okay, you can take this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So again, one of the advantages that the Wolves have is either whether they play the Thunder or the Spurs, if it gets to that, their part of their mindset is going to be on the finals.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it will be a dedicated, we need to take care of this business first. Both teams, I think, will be looking forward to, especially the Thunder, who have beaten the Wolves in 5 when it mattered most, and would not count the regular season as anything, but know that the Spurs, those Spurs wins were mostly convincing wins. And
totally.
And there are different types of wins. You can say, oh, so-and-so was out, or somebody had a hot hand. Schematically, the Spurs take away a lot of what the Thunder do well.
I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting how I think the Wolves or the Spurs will be eagerly awaiting that series to play the Thunder. When the Thunder are really good and won the championship. The Thunder are quickly becoming villains, I think, in the public's eye.
Well, and SGA gets unfairly maligned for the whistle he gets. He's not Joel Embiid. He's not some of these other guys. He is extremely clever with the off arm, and he does get a lot of good whistles. Yeah. But he doesn't complain very much. He goes about his business. He's fundamentally good in other aspects of the game. Really good distributor, really good on defense. I just think that calling him a foul merchant and leaving it at that is lazy. And he's one of the 2 or 3 best players in the NBA.
I would agree with that. Today's show is brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino, and I want to let you know that I will be doing a live show at Treasure Island with Chris Hine on March 15th. It's a Sunday. The Wolves play the Thunder that day at noon, and so the Timberwolves will be hosting a watch party at Treasure Island that will start at 11 a.m. and kind of carry over, obviously, throughout the course of the game. We'll be there watching the game amongst the fans, and you can come say what's up. We can hang out and chat. And then after the game, Chris and I will go on stage and do a live show once the game's over, probably like 2:45 to 3:45, that sort of range. So we'd love it if you spent your Sunday. Again, it's not this coming Sunday. It's for the Thunder game on March 15th. We'll be there from about 11 to 4 or 5 o'clock. If you'd like to clear your schedule, come hang out with us. We'll give you a mic to ask some live listener questions there on site. These are really fun. We've been doing watch parties and live shows at Treasure Island for a couple of years now, and we hope to see you there March 15th for Wolves Thunder starting at noon, and then hopefully stick around to listen to us do a podcast afterwards as Treasure Island Resort and Casino. Let's get back into Timberwolves specific. Where would you like to go next?
Well, I mean, we've talked about pace some. We've talked about slow-mo some. How about Ayo?
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's ideal when he's the one-man pace wrecking crew. I think you can do it against a Memphis team that didn't have a center. And you might even be able to do it against the Toronto team where Podol is just like back from an injury, I think, slow.
Yeah, he's back. I watched their last game.
But I mean, he's not a fast guy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So he would have to get back on defense before Ayo gets there.
And then they'll bring in Mamu Kilishvili.
That's right. And the Magic is a much more interesting matchup because the Magic can recover better, I think, in pace. But the point is, what I want to see is maybe Ayo dials it back a mile per hour or two so that everyone else can, so he has options. A lot of the times when he's on those, jailbreak dribble straight line drives, there's nobody around to dish it to. It's going to be, I'm beating the guy to the cup.
And that's why if you look at his statistical profile, like his rim field goal percentage is not that good.
Right.
Because he goes and he takes them there. He's not
like he's going 1-on-3 and he thinks he's got that half step.
He's taking the 3 beyond the arc,
right? Or
he's getting all the way to 0 inches from the rim and trying to finish there. It's not. He doesn't have any of the Julius Randle
He does.
Here I am.
He does have a floater though. He's done a couple of baseline floaters,
but he's not kicking. He's shooting the 3 or he's straight line drive attacking. And I thought that was great that we saw that from him.
Yes,
I'm telling you, like I've said it numerous times this week, like. When I spent an hour watching Ayo Dosunmu just clip after clip after clip there, that's what it looked like.
Yes.
The last game, who did they just beat? What was the last game? The Grizzlies.
Yeah.
The game against the Grizzlies is what Ayo Dosunmu, if you did not watch him in Chicago at all, that's what it looked like. And that's why I got on here the first 8 games I was here. It was like, well, it's not really helping or hurting, but it's not what they traded for. It wasn't the player they traded for. That's the player they traded for. That's where Ayo actually starts giving you real starter level value, but off the bench. That's where he becomes your Nikhil or Donte or whatever.
Teammates need to, Bones needs to understand that nobody should wait at the 3-point line for the kick out. Nobody should, people should be ready for the offensive rebound at least. I think people are still a little bit too nervous about everybody going down and getting, trapped at the, and losing transition the other way. But I don't want him to stop doing it. I agree with you that it is a special skill. I want him to be a leader of it. I want it to be contagious more than what I saw against the Grizzlies.
See, I thought it was contagious.
It was contagious to the extent that they were running. They just weren't necessarily running in a manner that was with him. They didn't understand that the offensive rebound is what they needed to get, not the kick out. There were a lot of people who stopped, went to the corners or went to the arcs.
Right.
You need to crash with Ayo because he's shooting.
Right.
But all that said, I can't believe that when I did my initial take on Ayo, first of all, I properly concentrated on on-ball defense, and he has been the goods on that. I really think that was a good thing to highlight. Pace setter was not, I just thought it was a product of the Bulls system rather than one of the drivers of the Bulls system. I hadn't seen enough Bulls games to properly appreciate how much of a catalyst of pace he could be.
Dude, I don't think in Chicago he was a catalyst of pace. I think the system was the catalyst of pace. Okay. And this has been him thinking, I can't be good unless we are going faster. Right. So I'm going to be the catalyst of pace. When I think about that team just ran, dude. It was just like
and they still do.
Yeah.
And they lose and lose. But
you didn't like Rob's rainbow kick the other day? You see that?
That was too bad.
Poor guy.
That was one of those, Shaq did a fool things that lives with you. So it's too bad. Ayo is a good teammate. He will pass up a shot for a shot another guy needs in the half court. He understands Ant's primacy so that when he's out there with Ant, it works well. And always likes the respect of being given the ball when he wants it, and therefore will play better with somebody on the other end of that. And I think Ant appreciates the desire there because it means that Ant can save a little on that end of the floor.
Yeah,
occasionally. But yeah, for the cost involved, we were talking all during the trade deadline, the pros and cons of Tim Connolly. Well, I think it's not too soon to put a check in the positive column on that particular deal.
Transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got, let's see what this next contract, that's part of, I think there's Ayo isn't a rental, but for now he's a rental. So what is he like in this rental period?
Right.
And then, what is then if he does sign a 4-year contract extension or something like that,
right.
What is that? And is he, if that has to be high teens going up on 20 million a year, is he good at that rate? A lot to be determined.
But what I would like to say about that is people who complain or want to highlight how much Ayo will get paid next time need to keep in mind what Dillingham as a lottery pick is getting paid.
Yeah.
It isn't like we got rid of a guy who never plays and therefore in their mind, he's a $2 million player. No, he's not. He's an $8 million.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Yeah. So what's the
the opportunity cost is positive in this case.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay Rob Dillingham $8 million, which means that Ayo's 20 is more easily accommodated.
And again, I don't know if it's gonna be 20. I think that would be high end.
It'd be on the high end, right?
Yeah, and
it'd be close to Nas territory.
It would be. Nas making 22 right now,
right?
But
on the other hand, his ceiling is close to Nas. I don't think it's better.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think it's better.
But I don't think it's incredibly worse if he plays the way
I'm just saying, in this market, man, I don't know how that level of player works.
I know. Well, right? Let's look. Because everybody likes to say, I think he's a poor man's Nickeil. What's Nickeil making?
16. Yeah.
So I do think 20 is an overpay.
Yeah.
And 16.
I would guess literally his agent will use the Nickeil marker as a look at this. Now, so my shift on to pivot a little bit, I don't think Ayo is Nickeil. I think from last season, Ayo was Donte. And now Donte is Mike Conley. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And Nas is still Nas, and now Bones and Slow-Mo are Nikhil. I think that's how this is shaken out. Kyle is Nikhil on the defensive side of the floor, and Bones is Nikhil on the offensive side of the floor. Kind of like, and they both play both ways. You know, Bones is trying on defense. Right. Kyle does some stuff on offense, but
I can see that. And we have to remember, I mean, Nikhil in Atlanta is a different beast.
Yeah, different player, different style of player.
Different player.
Yeah. How about that? How about this? If Donte DiVincenzo was a free agent this summer and going into the same market, Ayo Dosunmu will be going in as an unrestricted free agent. Who do you think would get more money between the two?
Donte, without a doubt. I mean, and he should. One of the things
I think I agree with that.
I mean, I wrote a column extolling all the great things he does for this team, and got some pushback for it on a racial basis, which, you know, you can only do what you can do. I'm a 73-year-old white man. Somebody wants to call me a racist. I don't have a lot of pushback demographically on that.
Demographically.
Yeah. But if you look at what he's doing, yes, it fits all the things that white people say about white players. He's a spark plug. He's smart. He's gritty. He does things. But the fact of the matter is those are facts on this team. Ragu is somebody who does muck things up in the perimeter for another team on defense. He gambles a little bit too much sometimes and takes a bad angle on closeouts sometimes, and therefore gets blown by on occasion. But what he gives you is somebody who scraps. He is a scrappy player, and scrappiness, ever since Chris Finch arrived in town, has been a component that is vital to what happens, whether it's Pat Bev, Jared Vanderbilt, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, having that scrappy component, and Ayo is that too. It's just that Ayo's development phase and shooting can't compare. And I just think at this point in time, you know, 60 plus games into the season, net rating and plus minus do matter. It's a huge sample size. And he's one of the top
in the whole league.
And way ahead of anybody on the Wolves. His contribution is consistently valuable.
Absolutely. And to his whiteness, he did set the record for vertical at the combine when he was there. 43-inch vertical or whatever it was. So as we saw showcased,
white men can jump.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's a white shooter, but he looked like Mac McClung on that alley-oop dunk from Ant the other night. Yeah, no, I think I really think that has been a low-key story for this team this year is how much better Donte just is, and sometimes, you know, and it's kind of like doing some of the Kyle Anderson or Mike Conley work that we would do, or be like, no, I'm pretty sure this guy is helping. Just don't look at the counting stats stuff. There's some of that with Donte, but I like the authority Donte has kind of not given himself, but first earned to become the starter, and has slowly, I thought, taken over the course of the year. Like last year's, particularly the first half of the season, he would not float into the background, but float into the periphery a little bit more. And, you know, allow Ant and Julius and Jaden and those guys do their thing. Like now I see Donte more frequently taking charge, you know, even on offensive, like
first shot of the game.
First shot of or whatever. Like
there's a lot of first shot of the game being like a 27-foot Donte three.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And you know, his impact comes and goes. As I say, Donte is now the barometer for the offense, as Finch used to say Jaden was. I think Dante's shot total is a signal of the health of the offense right now.
I agree with that simply because he gets unfairly ignored a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and part of that is weak side. He's always in the weak side slot in the arc.
Yeah,
he's not in the corner most of the time, occasionally, but he wants to be seen. I mean, he's out there in the slot.
Well,
And
I
also,
want him one pass away from Ant at all times. You're
Yeah.
gonna bring that help. You're gonna try to load that gap. That is one pass, and Donte's gonna shoot it from 23 to 27 feet,
Right.
wherever he's lined up there. I think he has become an underrated backcourt partner with Ant. When you think about all the ways that teams try to do things to make it more difficult from Ant from a schematic defensive standpoint,
Right.
you can basically use Donte as a counter for any sort of thing by involving him in the action with Ant or keeping him one pass away from the action, because he can shoot and make it at a high clip in any spot there.
Not only that, but somebody online named Pizza Man gave me a blizzard of Donte stats. He's a Donte stan, obviously, but just in raw numbers, and a lot of that is raw numbers because Donte has played so much this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like enormous amounts of rebounds, assists, steals, all those, counting stats that, like, I imagine if you play like in a broad-based fantasy NBA league, he's incredibly valuable.
Sure. Broad base. Yeah.
Because he gets a lot of rebounds for a guard.
Sure.
He gets a lot of steals for even a perimeter player. And his assists are a career high without really affecting his turnovers that much. He's having a career season.
I'm sure that last year in New York was really special too. I mean, I saw it
punctuated by the playoffs.
The playoffs.
If he has a playoff series or two like he had in New York, then the Wolves are going to be a very different team, especially if it's recognized by his teammates.
And I'm just saying,
onto that.
I could see that happening a lot more this year, given what I've seen from him in the regular season, than I would have said I could see that.
Yep. They would become a lot more dangerous team if, number one, he gets the opportunity, and number two, he takes advantage of it. I mean, to have Donte occasionally give you 6 or 7 threes in like 2 of the 7 games of a series, those could be needle movers.
Today's show is brought to you by Quince, Quince. And Quince is a clothing line that puts out everyday clothes that last. They sent me a quarter zip jacket, and it was one of those items of clothing where you kind of pick it up and you feel the quality when you hold it. There's like a weight to it. It feels like it's made out of premium materials, and that's because it is. That's what Quince does best. Premium materials, thoughtful design, and everyday staples that feel easy to wear and easy to rely on, even as the weather shifts. Quince has the everyday essentials with quality that lasts. Organic cotton sweaters, polos for every occasion, lighter jackets that keep you warm in changing seasons. The list goes on. And Quince is a company that works directly with top factories, so they cut out the middleman, so you're not paying for that brand markup, just quality clothing. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/DaneMoore for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/DaneMoore. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DaneMoore. Let's wrap this up by talking about Ant. Since we last recorded, they have played 3 games.
Yep.
The game against LA, the Wolves offense is awful. One of their worst offensive games of the season, but Ant makes the incredible shot down the stretch of that game to seal it, has the interaction with Finch. The Denver game was very different than that Clippers game, where the Clippers were loading up, putting double teams on him, and Ant was trying to play through that.
Right.
The Denver game, as they were doubling him and loading up in a little slightly different way, but Ant got off the ball a ton in that Denver game, only scored 21 points, kind of relied on his teammates to be the engine of the offense, as Denver's number one goal was, we're trying to turn off the Ant engine. And then Memphis was a completely different type of game where it was just the Ant show, 41 points. They had no answers for him. I think it's an interesting week for Ant in that way. What did you make of it?
What I enjoyed was the Denver game. It couldn't have been more stark for people who were really paying attention and know the dynamics of that whole Ant Finch relationship. Finch doesn't call timeouts and deliver a play that is so obviously a called play very often. But when they were coming down the stretch and he called a play that it was an entry pass to Rudy meant to hit a cutting Randall under the hoop.
Yeah.
That was clearly a called play. It worked the first time. They ran it again, and it didn't work the second time, but it was an announcement that, hey, you know, that is what you do. That's what you effing do. But this is also what you do. You also entry and you listen to your coach, and it works, and your team wins the game. This whole idea that Finch is carried by Ant, and the reason that the Wolves have a good record under Finch is because Ant is who he is. Or conversely, that Finch has enabled Ant to do great things. It is a mutually beneficial relationship where both principals have a genuine admiration and respect, but also an obligation to push back on occasion. And how those pushbacks happen and the tolerance of the other person for those pushbacks is where the relationship will crumble or solidify. And lately, there has been a harder pushback that has been squelched, whether it's walking off the floor in Atlanta, Rudy's outburst and the way that was handled, and saying what he said after the Clippers game. All of those things wound up solidifying the relationship, I think, even more. Mm-hmm. People need to buy into the fact that Chris Finch's top priority as a coach is keeping Ant happy and productive, and that both Ant and Finch are aware of that. And even with that awareness, that is a very, very productive and dynamic relationship. Mm-hmm. It's the best of all worlds. Just like it. Just enjoy the fact that a charismatic superstar who continues to evince some immaturity at times, still working his way through some things, as I've written about and others have written about, is given the leash to do that, is also tugged on that leash occasionally, and yet the relationship remains, I think, pretty inviolate. I'll be shocked if either Finch or Ant work to in any way crumble or dissolve that comedy that they have, COMITY, that they have. And it is one of the bedrocks of why this team has been a contender for Final Four status now in third year running.
No, I think that's really well said. And it's, I sometimes think about just like the alternative, right? Like, what type of player would Ant be if he didn't have the parameters that Finch put in place,
or he had a hard ass, kick ass coach?
Yeah, and I don't.
Hey, you do this or not?
And like, we don't know. Maybe that would work. Maybe that would work too. I also think about like, what would a Finch team be without Ant, or like a star player?
Right.
And I think it would be like an overachieving middle of the pack team.
Exactly.
You know, which maybe that's all you can ask for with a star player there. But I think I think for as much as Finch wants to play this hyper logical, make the right play that's in front of you type of coaching, to really do that at a high winning level is about getting a superstar who buys into that mentality of style of play. And I think it's the reason why Finch loves Julius Randle as much as he does, is because Julius plays that way, for better or worse, is seeking that. And Ant is at times. Right. And Ant, because he's a completely different level player than Julius, sometimes he's drawn outside of the lines too. And like, none of this stuff is ever going to be like perfectly clean game over 82 games. I mean, it's 5 seasons, been over 4, coming up on 500 games right? That Finch has coached Ant in. There's going to be some up and down variance to it. And I think we talk about it and name it whenever that is happening, whether blame is on Finch or is on Ant. But yeah, in the aggregate, I'm not doing they went to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago or enjoy it because the Wolves used to suck. I'm just kind of like looking at it. This is pretty good, right? Like, I don't know. Like, well, what am I supposed to be mad about here? I don't know. Yeah.
And not only that, but you have a situation where, for all the talk about Finch not, weaning younger players, when he came to this team, Ant was 19, Jaden was 20, and Nas was 21.
Mm-hmm.
So you can talk about developing younger players all you want. It's 5 years later. Ant is 24, Jaden is 25, and Nas is 26. Ayo is 26. Bones is 25. I mean, yes, you have Rudy Gobert, and yes, you have Julius Randle, but you also have pieces in place that when those people leave, Rudy, much harder to replace than Randle, in my opinion, but still, there are ways, not even counting if you had to get rid of either one of those veterans, what you would do. The veteran that was the most difficult to get over was Conley, and that's happened.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're still hanging tough here in terms of what this team's prospects are. So what I'm saying is you can coach in a manner that gives your superstar too much leeway and stifles the environment by which other players are allowed to develop alongside him. And it's a credit to Ant that he constantly praises McDaniels, who is a suffering person when it comes to skill set development. He is restricted by what has to happen, and to a lesser extent Nas, in terms of the praise of Nas, but Ant is clearly in Nas's corner. It just feels like I've always been curious as to whether or not the joy would ever be taken out of Ant's game. I mean, Kevin Durant, to me, is the biggest cautionary tale. Kevin Durant used to play with joy, and he doesn't play with joy anymore. He does not ever feel like a joyful person. And that's a real loss. And so you want to make sure that Ant can say something. I don't like to play fast, but I want the ball, so I got to move along, and hopefully I get it from this guy. Yeah. I mean, it's an admission, and he does it a lot. Like Krasinski asked him the other day, Finch said the closeouts were just terrible. What were the dynamics? What caused that? Well, for me, probably me on most of them. Yeah. I mean, you have this thing that that's the joy and the confidence coming through. His confidence has a glee, and it also has an arrogance. Mm-hmm. And the arrogance can sometimes, say, this is what I fucking do, to the coach in his face right after you get something. Or,
yeah, just show me the superstar who doesn't have arrogance,
Right.
I got one. It's like Duncan or Jokic or whatever.
We've gotten 5 years, and it doesn't feel yet, and this is always going to be the point, where when does a person say, I can't win here? Mm-hmm. That's De'Aaron Fox or whatever. That's the guy, whether it's, and Star's bigger than Fox, obviously. More than one franchise has just been immediately,
right.
You're done. Right. Because your star just said, nah,
right.
I don't think I can win with this group.
Yeah, cultivating the environment is, and that's not a Finch alone thing, but
Conley and the whole organization. I mean, it's a much more professional organization than it used to be. Yeah. And it has a guy, a superstar, who is a generous individual.
Mhm.
You know, um,
Well, you know what I'm thinking about when you're talking about this is we have like a pretty recent example of something similar to the Ant 19, Jaden 20, Nas 21 sort of thing of it not working. I mean, that was Cat, Wiggins, and Levine,
yes,
you know, and that wasn't watered correctly. That wasn't given the necessary
you threw Jimmy
environment.
Butler and Tom Thibodeau into the mix.
Yeah, like desperately trying to find something because, you know, all it was flashes in the pan,
right,
from Cat, Wig, and Levine,
right.
previous to that. It's a delicate balance to, like, I don't know, steward these guys like from teenagers into adulthood, and
Well,
that's been a win.
Jimmy Butler versus Mike Conley. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, you know, a guy who is begged off or, you know, middle fingered is off at least 3 or 4 franchises over the course of his, you know, and now predictably is hurt and getting paid a ton of money.
And part of the reason Kyle Anderson is on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Traded
To
to
bring it full
Miami,
circle. I like it.
for Jimmy Butler, right? And that Golden State deal. I just had one last thing I had written down. The Rudy comments about Kyle passing the ball, I think, got wildly spun out of.
If he
direction.
hadn't used the word connector, I think it would have gone a little bit. Connector was a word that was very, very much associated with Julius Randle in the previous 72 hours.
Sure. And again, it's kind of like I took it in the same way when you said the stuff in the locker room about accountability and effort, where it was like all true. Like, maybe you don't say that in front of the cameras and mics. But the piece I saw being misconstrued was that when Rudy said passing the ball, I think people were taking that to be passing to Rudy.
Right.
And yes, would Rudy like to get passed to
guy.
a little bit more? True. But I think what Rudy is talking about and how I framed the question to him, I said, what has this team missed from Kyle from the last 2 seasons? And he said passing the ball. And it was, the question was about the team. And I think Rudy was answering it about the team of like, what is the offense been missing? And it has been they've been missing a connector and a passer, which Kyle is, I don't mean this like hyperbolically, but like Kyle Anderson is like Nikola Jokic offensively if he never shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if you turned off his ability to score individually, like that's what Jokic is.
I think the breadth of his court vision is in Jokic's.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, Jokic sees 94 feet when he's, you know.
I should think of a lesser player who functions as a hub. Draymond.
No, I understand what you're saying. Like, no, and I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I get your greater point. It is a bridge too far for Jokic, but I do get your point. I just couldn't say.
Yeah. Because
Jokic is literally may have a combination of finesse and court vision, maybe the best I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. And
so
to use Kyle Anderson,
he is an impoverished man's Nikola Jokic. I will give you that.
I do also think he is the single best player comp in the NBA for Nikola Jokic. Give me a better one. Give me a better one.
I remember this.
It's a terrible one, but give me a better one. I
do remember this. Yeah. That you wanted them to sign, Denver to sign Kyle,
and they almost did.
And he would have been better than JV this year because JV stinks at it.
Exactly. But yeah, what I wanted to say was like, and again, this will get lost in the wind of social media and everything else. And that's going to be labeled as Rudy being cantankerous, you know, a continued pattern of it. I just know what Rudy was talking about in that moment was our team has missed an offensive connector and somebody who is looking to pass more than they shoot. Right. That was what Rudy thought in that moment. And I get what he's talking about.
Right.
I see that watching this team every night.
And Rudy never opens his mouth to make an opinion that in the locker room anyway, I would say on foul calls, it's a little different, but he never says something that he doesn't believe is good for the team.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell people have agendas and Rudy has agendas, but Rudy speaks on agendas only when if it's his agenda, only when that agenda he firmly believes will also help the team, which some people are more delusional about that than others. I don't think.
I mean, and he has
I don't think
delusion-
Rudy is delusional.
He has some delusion about his involvement in the offense, and
but
what
less
that
so
could
now.
mean.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at
Yeah,
Rudy's.
sure.
We remember Rudy down the stretch just a year ago.
Yeah.
Suddenly becoming like a third option, a viable third option on this team.
Mhm.
He's a distant fifth right now. I mean, you need
Yep.
McDaniels to get what he gets. And then Donte, you need that outside shooting. And we just got through saying barometer. We don't say Rudy shots of the barometer, but you know that Ragu gets twice as many shots over a 10-game period than Gobert gets.
Right.
If not 3 times as many.
Sure.
So Rudy has had to suck it up. I mean, if you go back and look at the way he was engaged in Utah,
Absolutely.
he has bitten his tongue on his role on offense
Yeah.
a lot more at a time. And I think it's because, again, to bring it back to Rudy, he genuinely sees that he may not be the best option.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that delusion as much as he did maybe 3 years ago. So
Yeah, you're right. Delusion isn't the right word. He just wants the ball when they're completely ignoring him.
And he wants to feel good about that aspect of his game.
Sure.
I think everybody knows, just like Ragu gets his opening shot 3 because he wants an early signal that, hey, here I am, Rudy wants a couple of early looks that go in the basket. It's almost worse when he gets an early look and screws it up, because then the momentum trends the other way. And the last thing I'll say about Rudy is that the flagrants are on him, and that's
Sure.
hard. He is somebody who, I wrote about this briefly in the newsletter a couple of weeks ago, the N1. He mixes virtue and victimhood in really interesting ways. I mean, it's like, I got injustice meted upon me, and I will make it just.
Right.
Somebody will get what I got.
It's such an interesting, just the whole Rudy dynamic is he's playing a math game out there on defense, right? Like that's very practical. Of
Yes.
like we understand that he's sacrificing lower percentage shot, allowing teams to take
Right.
lower percentage shots and selling out to deter the highest percentage shots, right? That's Rudy is a defensive robot,
Right.
in that sort of way, and it spits out numbers the entirety of his career of, on a per possession basis, the value that math brain brings. Now, the same sort of dynamic does exist on the offensive side of the floor in a way when you put it into the aggregate.
Right.
When Rudy does catch it and take a shot attempt, those shot attempts average almost 1.4 points per possession.
Exactly. Yep.
But you have to subtract from that 1.4 with the turnovers that do occur to the team. But Rudy's argument, and statistically this bears out, is if you include the times when I do catch it and take the shot attempt, and you widen the scope to include the times when I fumble the ball, and you even put that in there, the average points per possession is still good and better than what we normally do. So it's not like he doesn't have ground to stand on statistically, but I do think it ignores some of the art of basketball,
Right.
Or just the psychology and the human element of, as a teammate, you are thinking about the percentage. The only percentage you're thinking about when you're passing to Rudy Gobert is the likelihood that he catches it and that this doesn't go terribly. And you do not calculate in the likelihood that he dunks it if on the 70% chance that he does catch it. It's wholly unique around the league.
I agree.
And
You mentioned art. It's commonly said, that Rudy's mistakes are loud and his successes are quiet on offense. And that's aesthetically true as much as it is statistically true.
Right.
And I would argue that Nas is the flip side of that.
Sure.
Nas's successes are loud, pretty loud statistically, but really loud aesthetically. I mean, seeing a guy that large play with that handle and that kind of finesse and that kind of quickness, and his mistakes are quiet, but I don't know what.
Yeah, they're like quiet because they're in the pursuit of something cool.
Well, here's what I will tell you. What made me really think about this in this way is like the anti-Rudy. Nas's ISO points per play is 0.63.
Yeah.
That for a big man is, I mean, for anybody really,
Sure.
but you don't want Nas in isolation because it doesn't work out. And you can think about all the times he does get stripped or he does fall down thinking he's fouled and it doesn't work, or the runner is a little too hard. On the other hand, when he is in ISO and it works, it is a beautiful thing. It is something you remember. Kind of like Zach LaVine has a absolutely gorgeous jumper, but it's the defensive side. Well, that's a whole other conversation. That's
I
getting in a little Zach LaVine hate.
Yeah, right. Because I brought him up. That's my fault. No, I think to the Nas point, it is kind of like one of those. I think about that too because I do feel like there is something untapped there from an isolation standpoint or a self-created offense standpoint for Nas, but it's so come and go as like an intention of the Wolves offense. So my Nas bias and my glass half full with that is I kind of go, well, if he was allowed to do it at a greater volume of possessions, would it be one of those situations where there'd be more rhythm and then the points per possession goes up there?
And
but
that's a little
witch
positive way to look at it. And I like that. And I'm not even sure I wouldn't endorse that. I think I might endorse that. But the way I think of it right now, it's kind of like an Olympic skater pulling off a kind of move that is incredible to watch, but sometimes it doesn't land.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, Nas tries things that sometimes don't work. And he's got an audacity of his skill set, particularly in his moves toward the rim. I mean, I love the way he uses either hand interchangeably in such a great way, but sometimes that little left-handed hook isn't the way to go,
Yeah.
And fortunately, what I will say is he's gotten rid of that hell-bent for leather right-hand layup thing where he doesn't really get any nearer to the basket. It's like a 12-foot banker attempt on the sprint that I've almost never failed to see it not be shot too hard. It's never a floater. It's always a driving shot.
Yeah, he's out of control.
Yeah, that's it too. But anyway, which is all to say,
but it's a good.
As a lover of basketball, I'll take an occasional pratfall from Nas just to see that art. Sometimes I'm not sure it's good for the team.
Sure,
but sometimes, when Nas started skipping, first he did the right hand move and then he did the left hand move and then started doing the thing and all the players joined him. NBA basketball doesn't get any better than that.
Sure. No, there's absolutely value to that. And there's value in having riskier players on your team.
Yes.
Higher upside, lower downside.
Right.
But to bring it full circle to the Kyle thing, this is why you need some stabilizers.
And a Rudy Gobert.
High
floor players.
That's a thing. I mean, Jaden and Nas are extremely volatile players in terms of their night-to-night production. And you could throw Donte in there too. You could throw Julius in there as well. You do need a couple of guys to just be like, yeah, we're going to kind of stay within one standard deviation of what we normally do. And who is that on this team other than Rudy and
Ant?
And Ant.
Not on defense, but I will tell you, if you don't think Ant's going to get 20 in a game, you're a fool.
Yeah. And I think Ayo could become a stays within one standard deviation sort of guy too.
I agree, like 11-4.
Yeah, just not. And that's what concerned me about the beginning of the Ayo time, even though I'm telling myself in my head, he just got here. But it's there was just more lows than I anticipated from him. And And there will be value if he proves to be a player who has, just has bad games at a lower clip than some of those guys ahead of him in the pecking order do, because they
Absolutely.
do.
Because he does have the advantage of who he replaced.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, this went a little long, but this was fun. I think we found every single way to talk about Kyle Anderson this week on the show, but somehow we found a new way.
Have other people been as pushbacky about?
No. I mean, so I did one right at, like, I just kind of did it solo after the LA game, the time they signed him, and what I said at the time was, I think he's going to play a lot, and I said, yeah. You did not agree with
I
that.
walked into that press conference shocked that people thought that he was. And I was wrong. You were right. I mean, at least thus far.
Well, and I mean, I was right in that I said he would play a lot. We didn't. I mean,
right. Well,
I
but
said,
that
I'm
right
like,
now
I
is
don't
the
know.
most important thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it does mean, as of now, that Finch is courting disruption for the upside.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit optimistic in my view.
Sure.
But, I've criticized Finch and been shown I was wrong before. And every now and then I've criticized Finch and been right. But most of the time, when Finch has an instinct, especially about a player and what that player can bring, it's worked out.
I think it's just a loud stamping from Finch that said, in his opinion, what the path for this team this year should have been was just trying to go all in this season type of team. That's where it was at. And to create the second or third timeline. I don't think
the third timeline, right?
I don't think Finch ever had agreed with the concept wholeheartedly of developing the third timeline of Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr.
I think he was in on Shannon Jr. I really do think he thought that Shannon Jr. could be a poor man's Nickeil. Certainly the way he felt.
Certainly more than Rob. I also think that one was kind of a lack of alternatives. Like, what were the alternatives for Shannon at the beginning?
He liked the fact that he was a mature rookie, and he also liked the fact that he could get to the rim. I think he was shocked at how undisciplined Shannon was on defense.
Yeah,
that's really what killed him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
not that he's dead, but he's comatose this year.
Well, and what has become clear about that role of that eighth man is and when you look at Nickeil or you look at Kyle before that, I think actually what that role on this team is asking for more is defense than it is offense, and
gap sealer. Somebody who seals gaps,
right? Like, isn't that like the number one thing? And TJ can do like a lot more than Kyle can offensively as an individual scorer. And he could do a lot more at the basket than I think even Nickeil can do, even Atlanta Nickeil, but I don't think that's the needed skill set. And I think Finch, by going and getting Kyle Anderson and playing him 15 minutes in the first game was his way of being like, I actually think this is what we needed to be doing all season. And if we would have, maybe we're not fighting for this 3, 4, 5, 6.
They came back from that 3-game road trip 3-0, and Leah Bill Olson's first question pregame was, "What was the key to that?" He said, "Our defense. Our defense was a lot more consistent." And he was right. The maddening thing about the Timberwolves a lot during the season is offensive inconsistency, but when the defense joins that inconsistency, that's when things get toxic.
Mm-hmm. And that's why they keep saying the identity of this team is defense, even if it's not, because that's true. Because what you said is true. I just don't think they have the personnel of a defense.
If you're going to play Julius Randle and you're going to allow Ant the freedom to come and go on defense, then you have to accept that.
Yeah, that's 72 minutes of guys who are not playing defense consistently. So, it's going to be interesting in this last chapter, this last 20 games of the season.
It's a tough. The Pistons twice.
I can't wait.
I know.
I can't wait. Like, let's play basketball and let's learn about what this team is, and hopefully win and start developing patterns of behavior.
Oh, like
for
I
the
said,
playoffs.
40 and 19. After the All-Star break. Now, I don't think Finch has typically had as strong. I mean, last year they were 18-8.
Yeah.
Against some pretty poor competition. On the other hand, the competition has not been bad. It's been mediocre, and they're 5-1 after the break right now.
Sure.
So, Toronto and Orlando, both winnable games, both tough games.
Yeah.
And then the West Coast trip, who knows? I mean, Golden State and the Clippers should be wins. The Lakers will be a very interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
And then OKC, isn't it? Like in a noon game or something?
Yeah. That's the next Sunday, following Sunday.
So, but then you get the Pistons a couple of times in the last 15 games. You get Houston at least once. Orlando, you get again.
Yep.
I mean, those teams have metal. They have grit. So, it's going to be great.
Which
I love this time of year.
Theoretically, like harden the team,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which I think it needs. And we'll be there to track whatever is going down. They do play Toronto this evening. Kyle and I will get on Friday morning. We're actually going to try going live for that one. It's something we want to just kind of like test run in advance of the playoffs. So maybe we can do some more live stuff on YouTube. So, I mean, it's the middle of the day. It's going to be like 10:30 a.m.
Do you
on
know
Friday.
Barnes is playing? He
played in the last. He played in the last one.
Oh, he did
against
because I know he was questionable. Maybe it was. I know he was hurt somehow.
Yeah. I was watching the all possessions, so I didn't really hear what was happening. But he came out and he was like, first possession of the game was doing the like annoying face guard thing of Jalen Brunson. They played the Knicks in their last game.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see the Barnes Edwards type of how Barnes tries to guard him. If I don't know what the injury, assuming he plays there, but that got chippy. Like it was, remember when Jalen Wells did that to Ant last year, where he was just like, nope, I'm just chest to chest with you the whole time. Doesn't matter. And Ant got annoyed by that. I think Scotty Barnes, who is a higher level of player than Jalen Wells, he was doing the same thing against Jalen Brunson. So I think that'll be.
It's a good comp though, Jalen Wells for Scotty Barnes.
I mean, I don't think Scotty Barnes stands would love hearing that, but
Wells is an underrated player.
I do like Wells there. Barnes has a little more offensively to him for sure, but I'm looking forward to this.
Has been overrated in his career.
I think we're both aligned on that one. It's always hard though when you're like, all right, I see this guy being referred to as the 25th best player, and in my head I'm like, maybe it's like the 40th, like. But it's like, what is
exactly?
It's weird hills to die on. But that'll happen tonight. Kyle and I will be on tomorrow morning to do that. And if you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll get a notification when we go live. That's part of the intention of us doing some more live stuff, is to drive a little more people to YouTube. We'd love to get more subscribers, just so that you're seeing whenever there is a new episode, you get a push notification and stuff on that. But that's coming on Friday morning with Kyle. We'll talk about whatever happens with Anthony Edwards and Scotty Barnes in this Wolves-Raptors game this evening. But until Friday morning with Kyle, he's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.